Welcome, listener. This is Sebastian Nothwell.
And this is Sarah Wallace. Hello.
And today, we will be talking all about setting up large print and dyslexia editions of hard copy books.
Woo!
So, Sarah, you have just recently finished setting up these editions for most, if not all, of your back catalog?
All of my back catalog. I just finished on, Sunday. I got Spellmaster of Tutting on Crest done, so we're all finally caught up.
All caught up. Now, what prompted you to begin this special edition journey?
Great question. I take a lot of classes with Erin Wright, who is an indie author who does a lot of classes for indie authors, which I highly recommend the classes. And just a plug for Erin's classes, if you join the Wide for the Win group on Circle, the Circle app, it's free to join, and you can get the replay episodes for a discount. And if you go to Erin Wright's website, it's WRIGHT, right? And she has a tab for authors where she lists out her upcoming classes. So I definitely recommend them. I took the large print class that she taught a few months ago, actually on your recommendation.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh my god, my brain is a sieve. I don't remember that.
Well, I was telling you about the class, and I said, I don't know that large print readers are really within my demographic. And you said, well, keep in mind that A, people with low visibility or low vision can have any age, so they might be within your demographic, and also older queer people exist. So I was like, oh, that's an exceptionally good point. So I went ahead and took the class, and I was very glad I did, because it was very, very helpful. And you were right, because they definitely are within my demographic, because I have sold every single version that I've set up at this point, so.
Oh my god. Sorry, just on the one hand, I'm glad we've had this journey together. On the other hand, disturbing gaps in my memory. But yeah.
You were right.
I concur with past me. I think that a lot of authors might hear large print and they think, oh, that's for, cozy mysteries. That's for the Angela Lansburys of the world. That's not my books. Why would my readers need large print? And, here's the thing. Human eyesight can fail spontaneously at any time for a wide variety of reasons.
Yes.
Getting worse eyesight as you get older is kind of the human condition. That's something everyone can expect. But it is not the only reason eyesight can become worse.
Right. And as somebody with glasses, I really should have recognized that, and yet I did not. So it was a very good point, and I'm glad that I went ahead and took the class. The main takeaways I had from the class were, and I do recommend taking her class if you can, because it really does go into much more detail than I'm going to go into in this podcast. But the main takeaways I took from her class were that the biggest consumer of large print editions are libraries, and that when you're setting up large print books, it's a good idea to do both paperback and hardcover, because hardcovers are sturdier and more durable. So if a library invests in a hardcover copy, it will last for a lot longer time. But paperbacks are both cheaper and lighter weight. So if you have a patron who has low vision and also doesn't necessarily want to hold a huge, heavy hardcover book, they can have a paperback and it'll be a little bit easier to hold for them. So Erin recommended having both so that way the libraries can pick whichever one would work for their particular patron base.
Giving everybody a wealth of options to fit their needs.
Exactly.
Now, what was the process of doing this for you? Because speaking as someone who has not yet had the opportunity to do this, I don't know if I have the design software required to bring this vision to print.
So the tools I used for it were Vellum, which is the formatting software I use for my books. You can also use Atticus, which is another formatting software. Each program is about, I think, $200, $250 if you want to be able to generate both ebooks and print. I have found it to be worth that investment. And then I also have Canva, and so basically it was Vellum and Canva that allowed me to do it. And the biggest investment for this is the ISBNs, because the way I've been doing it, and I added hardcover to this list of versions I was doing because I reasoned that if I was offering hardcover for large print, I probably should offer hardcover for my regular print readers, because a lot of readers prefer hardcover over paperback. So it wound up being 4 editions per book. and that cost a lot in ISBNs. I bought a bundle of 100 from Bowker, and so that was the biggest investment. But I spent, I don't know, $450 on that because I had a membership with IPPA, which gives you a discount on Bowker purchases. So it wound up taking off a chunk of that money. So it wound up being around 400, 450, something around there. And when you buy 100, then that winds up being like less than $5 per ISBN. So worth the investment, but it is a pretty big chunk of change to start off with. So, once I had all the ISBNs, the process that I do is I format the book in Vellum first, and then I go into Bowker and register the book with the ISBN, and then I go into Ingram Spark and set up the book on Ingram Spark, and then once I get to the part where I have to upload the cover, then I pause and go to Ingram Spark's cover template generator, and then I download the cover template or have it emailed to me, and then I go into Canva and upload the template and then format the cover, which is really what takes the longest time because each cover I did was a slightly different size, which was a very absurd thing to do, but I started that with Letters Half Moon Street to make them distinct, and then I wanted to keep them the same, so I backed myself into a corner there, so don't be like me.
Learn from our mistakes.
Learn from our mistakes and maybe be more consistent with your cover trim sizes. I will say that large print does have specific trim sizes that are unique to large print books, but I did it because I figured if that's what librarians are used to, then that's probably a good idea to stick with it. Unlike me, could probably make your Dyslexia prints the same size as your regular prints, whatever you wanted to do there. Anyway, so then I set it up on Canva, downloaded the PDF of the cover, and then uploaded that onto Ingram Spark. And then I was done with that book and moving on to the next one. To set up all 4 books for each title took me roughly 3 hours. I think by the time I got to Spellmaster Obtaining on Crust, I was down to about 2.5 hours. Still a pretty heavy investment of time, though, if you have a big back catalog.
So it's a fairly big financial investment upfront if you don't already have the formatting software.
Yes.
And it's a pretty big time investment per title.
If you don't have the hardcovers that you're also doing, it probably would be cut down to about 2 hours, because that's like a whole extra book cover you're not having to set up. And there's nothing saying you have to do all of them at once. I did, in part because I wanted to see how it would go. Because the class I took was specifically about large print, but another author last year sometime had asked me if I was going to set up dyslexia versions of my books, and I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
But it is!
But it is!
Specialty fonts have been created that some dyslexic people find make it easier to read, specifically by weighting down the bottom half of the letters so they don't flip around on the page.
Exactly, and it's called Open Dyslexia. It's available on Vellum and Atticus, and if you use Canva, it's also available on Canva.
It's called Open Dyslexic because it is free for use with a suggested donation, because their mission is to make this font available for as many people as need it.
That's so nice. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And a fun fact about this font, is that it's available on all e-reader platforms except Apple Books. I don't know why Apple doesn't have it.
Apple's doing a lot of interesting things in the world of books.
They really, really are. I did do an experiment where I exported the dyslexia version of one of my books as an ebook and sent it to a friend to test it on his phone or whatever. And he said it worked. So you can kind of work around it by making your own, but that means that you have to specifically have that one, which is kind of a pain in the ass. But, yeah. But yes, so Kindle, Kobo, BookFunnel, I think every other e-reader platform does offer that font, so you can change it within your phone if that's easier for you. And for authors who are setting it up, you don't have to worry about it for ebooks because it's built into the platform, except for Apple. But an author had asked me if I was doing it, and I hadn't known anything about it. So when I took Erin's class, I asked her about doing a book with Open Dyslexia font, and she was like, I've never done it before. I don't know anything about that. So I decided to experiment with it, since I already had the ISBNs and I already had the software and everything. And I also did a poll on my stories on Instagram to see if there would be an interest in it. And I did both a large print and the dyslexia print. And actually the dyslexia print had a higher interest than the large print did. One person said they wanted to do large print, which was basically enough for me to decide to go ahead and do it. But yeah, so I do recommend doing the dyslexia print, but you don't have to do it all at once like I did. I did it all at once because I was testing all the formats out with Letters to Half Moon Street to see.
I do remember, this is one place where my memory doesn't have a hole in it, but I do remember when you first started doing the large print one, you came back and were like, it's crazy. I've already got like orders for the large print ones. I haven't even told anyone the large print is out yet. And I was thinking that it's probable that several library systems have some sort of alert whenever a new large print edition of anything is available, just because like of all the books that are published every day, so few are put out in large print. And I feel like for a lot of publishers, large print is an afterthought. Only if the book sells X many copies and we know it appeals to these demographics will we bother putting out a large print edition.
Yeah, exactly.
But now that we have like print on demand, we don't have to do a specialty huge run of large print books that is dependent on selling all the copies printed to make its money back. You can set up the large print edition once and then have it automatically printed and distributed to everyone who wants it, which is, I think, a larger segment of the population than most people realize. And also, like, hey, low vision people deserve to read.
They do! And another thing that Ingram Spark I will add to Ingram Spark's favor is that they have a checkbox in the uploading form that has whether the book is large print or not, which I suspect basically makes it searchable, or when someone's looking for under a filter, it will go within that filter. I don't know what that does, but I can say that it's worked. Another tip that Aaron recommended was to add large print or dyslexia print in the subtitle of the book, and to add it in the keyword searches to make it as findable as possible. Yeah, it's kind of the definition of a passive income because I don't talk about these. Like, I talk about them once a month on my newsletter, and when I set them up on Instagram, I'm like, yay, they're set up! And that's the extent of my promotion of these books, and they sell without me doing anything, which is pretty amazing.
That would seem to indicate there is a hungry market for these editions specifically. An underserved market, if you will.
It is. And like, for indie authors, it's a really nice way to be a little bit more accessible to people. And again, the formatting software is an investment. I've used it since my first book. So it was an investment, but it was an investment like 3 years ago. Once you buy it, once you have the program forever. And I've used it for all of my books. But it's come in handy, especially for these. But yeah, it's kind of like a crock-pot meal. You fix it up and then forget about it, and then just let the numbers kind of roll in.
Let the readers come and feast on your potluck.
That's right. And I've got the numbers for each version that I've set up. Not for each book, because I figured that might be a little bit more numbers than people care to hear. But I started submitting these in April, or setting them up in April, and they've been on sale since the 1st of May. And, you know, it's a variety of titles because I've staggered setting it up. But since then, I have sold 28 copies of Dyslexia print books, 20 copies of hardcover large print books, and 32 copies of paperback large print books. And again, that's with no promo, no reaching out to libraries or anything. It's just them existing and people finding them.
And these are backlist books. They're not new releases or rapid releases. It's just, hey, this book is available in a new format. And then we have built it, they have come.
Exactly. Yes, that is exactly correct. They're all backlist books.
So overall, it sounds like your experiment has been a rousing success.
Yes, a definite success. Now that I'm caught up, I'm going to integrate this process with my books going forward so that I don't have to spend hours catching up. So when I set up a book initially for pre-order, I'm going to set it up in all of the versions so that, kind of like I do with my audiobooks, I want them to be available on release day for everyone who wants it. So that's my goal for my next book, the second book in the Fane Human Relations series I'm writing with S.O. Callahan. That one we're setting up, hopefully today and tomorrow, I'll have that set up, so that when it's pre-orders live, it will be available for every version.
Fantastic. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about that book. Because, dear listener, I've been sitting on this since December.
I know, you've been so patient.
If you've ever wondered whether or not Sebastian Nothwell could keep a secret, yes.
Yes, he can.
But God, at what cost?
Indie authors, I know it's a bit of a time investment, and again, a monetary investment if you don't have the formatting software to begin with. But if you do have the formatting software, and if you have bought or are planning to buy more ISBNs, I definitely encourage people to do it. It's basically a win-win situation where you get money from orders and your readers have more options and you can make your book more accessible to more people. As we discussed, it's an underserved market, and so especially if you are a queer indie author writing queer indie stories, it's a really nice thing to be able to offer that to a readership that may not get these sorts of stories as a rule within these formats. It's cheaper than buying an audiobook version. If you buy the formatting software and 100 ISBNs, it's still cheaper than paying for an audiobook recording of your books. I'm not saying don't do an audiobook recording. I'm saying in terms of accessible formats, it's a fairly low-cost format to set up.
A smaller upfront investment on the author's part.
Yes, exactly.
And speaking of audiobooks, I have been thinking, since this episode began, that wouldn't it be a fun idea to just have a maximum accessibility Kickstarter campaign?
Yes!
Where you fund the audiobook and also the large print and dyslexia editions.
It's so good. And both fonts are space hogs, I guess. They take up a lot of space. For obvious reasons. The point is that they're supposed to. A large print is large print. So be aware that it is going to be a more expensive book to print. So all of my copies are a little bit more expensive than my standard copies are because it's a lot more pages. And the dyslexia print is also a large font, so it also takes up a lot of space. Less space than the large print does, but it is still a pretty big font. Want to let you know that ahead of time, part of Erin's class on large print was kind of how to reduce some of the pages so you can save a little bit of money. I didn't take a lot of that advice personally, just because it was a lot of work to set up, and I was kind of worried that it would sort of reduce the efficacy of having a large print version if I was kind of cutting corners to save space. So I basically took the hit in terms of profit on those by not cutting corners. So I make $1.50 or something on each of my books.
I mean, that's pretty standard for any indie author offering print editions, large print or no.
Yeah, agreed. Print is probably the least profitable, I think, out of every version. So these are definitely no exception on that. Basically, I recommend if you have the time and you have the money to do it, it is definitely worth doing it. I really would love to see more indie authors doing this because I think it's, again, a great accessibility option. And if you aren't sure how to set it up, I do have a couple of reels on my Instagram account where I walked through the Vellum, how to format it on Vellum, and then I walked through what it looks like setting it up on Ingram Spark as a large print. So they're brief, they're 2 minutes each. So they're not in-depth. So if you want an in-depth walkthrough, definitely take Erin's class. But if you want something a little bit faster, it's free, but it's not going to be as in-depth or detailed, then you can watch those little reels, and it's just me walking through how to do it.
Just kind of getting a little taste for what you're getting into.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. So if folks want to follow your author journey and find out more about you and your books, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at sarah.wallace.writer, and they can find me on my website, sarahwallacewriter.com.
Thank you so much for joining me on the pod today, and I'm excited to have you back again for another panel soon.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.